Under New York law, a defendant must be sane enough to assist in his own defense if there is to be a trial. With Ferguson rejecting what Kuby thinks is his only defense, he demands the court re-examine Ferguson's competency. If the judge rules Ferguson is incompetent, there won't be a trial at all.
There wasn't a lot of difference between the two sides in terms of the psychiatric evaluation, but for the standards of competence, all you have to do is to be able to understand the nature of the proceedings and assist in your own defense in the most rudimentary way. So in essence, if you know the difference between a judge and a grapefruit, you're competent to stand trial.
On December 10th, 1994, the judge is ready to deliver his decision. He again rules that Ferguson is competent to stand trial. Then, Ferguson makes a move that stuns everyone. Against all advice, he fires Kuby and says he will defend himself. What would follow is one of the most bizarre courtroom spectacles anyone had ever seen.
It's going to be mental illness theater. It's going to be all of us sucked into Colin Ferguson's own delusional behavior with the aid of the prosecutor.
On January 26, 1995, the trial begins of the accused gunman in the Long Island Railroad Massacre. What would follow is one of the most bizarre courtroom spectacles anyone had ever seen. Choosing to represent himself, Colin Ferguson, referring to himself in the third person, denies being the shooter.
The evidence will show that Colin Ferguson was in fact a well-meaning passenger on the train. This is a case of stereotype victimization of a black man and subsequent conspiracy to destroy him.
He was a very intelligent individual.
What's the sense of people pointing fingers when there were inconsistencies in their police statements and their grand jury statements? Who do you believe?
I don't know what he was reading, but for someone who's never been in a courtroom before, he was comfortable.
Ferguson takes on the demeanor of a seasoned defense attorney.
Someone opened the bag, took the weapon out of the bag, and proceeded to shoot. It is at that point that Mr. Ferguson was awakened by the gunfire and himself, amidst the confusion, sought to protect himself, sought to run for cover like any other person on that train.
You had a man who looked like a lawyer, sounded like a lawyer, but this was a crazy person and doing a superb job of acting, which put the judge and the prosecutor in the position of really being supporting players in Colin Ferguson's mental illness reenactment.
As Ferguson continues, his delusions become more and more apparent.
There were 93 counts to that indictment. 93 counts, only because it matches the year 1993. Had it been 1925, it would have been 25 counts.
No matter what defense we used or didn't use, no matter what lawyer he had or didn't have, he was always going to do this. He was always going to represent himself. This was his shot at greatness.
For the survivors, Ferguson's performance in court is difficult to watch, but their greatest challenge is yet to come. A week into the trial, passenger Robert Giuliano begins to tell the jury the gruesome details of what he saw that evening on the train.
Pointing to the left, pointing to the right, walked up a few feet, pointed in this. Whoever was in front of me just went like this, random. two girls that took the train. I used to call them the blonde sisters, and I just said, he's got a gun, get down. And I pushed them down and just get down. This girl who was sitting next to me, she got up and started crawling, and before you know it, he was about 10 feet away, and she picked her head up, and he looked at her, and he pointed, and shot her. Looked like her head exploded. I found out it was in her neck, and the blood was it just went all over me. I would have done something, but I couldn't. It took me a long time to get over that, not being able to control that situation. He looked me in the eyes, square in the face. I'm looking at you right now. And he pointed his gun at me.
Almost all of those wounded in the attack testify against Ferguson.
He looked me dead in the eye and pointed the gun, and with the most serious look I have ever seen on anyone's face, he shot me in the chest.
Worst of all, the survivors must face being cross-examined by the very person they saw shoot them.
They gathered strength from each other, and for the most part, they couldn't wait to face him.
Surviving witnesses in the Long Island Railroad Massacre prepare to be cross-examined by none other than the accused gunman himself, Colin Ferguson.
I watched you reach over the top of one seat with your right hand and shoot down into it.
I saw you shooting everyone on the train, okay?
Marianne Phillips, the first person to be shot, played dead to avoid being shot again. Ferguson tries to argue that that means she couldn't have seen him.
The only time you have seen the suspect is on TV. Am I correct?
I saw you shoot me, and I've seen you on TV.
I was one of the last to be questioned. And I stood out. I'm like, I'm looking at you right now for 32 minutes. Never took my eyes off him. Pulled everything I had inside of me, got all my strength up, and I said, this guy's not going to beat me again.
Is it your testimony that the defendant Ferguson stood right in front of you and shot you?
You weren't right in front of me. You were about 10 to 12 feet away, approximately distance we're at about now.
But even in the face of so much evidence, Ferguson maintains the defendant is innocent. In a rambling closing argument, more than a year after he was first indicted, Ferguson accuses the many witnesses who testified against him of conspiring with the authorities to convict him. On February 17, 1995, Ferguson is found guilty on multiple charges, including all 6 counts of murder. A month later, survivors and victims' family members file into court to testify during sentencing. For 3 days, those affected by the railroad massacre ask the judge to punish Ferguson as severely as possible. Joyce Goricki reads a letter written by her 11-year-old daughter.
It feels so unreal. I still try to remember his voice. I wish my dad could see me graduate. He still will from above, and I hope he is proud.
Robert Giuliano also takes the stand.
I witnessed Colin Ferguson murder Maria McToto, whose blood was spilled on my clothes. She didn't have a chance.
Still, throughout the victims' statements, Ferguson seems to be barely listening.
Remember, you guys, you're nothing but a piece of garbage. You're at the 5 minutes, that's all I need. 5 minutes.
During the trial, the death sentence had been reinstated in New York for murder, but Ferguson would not face execution. His crimes had occurred before the law was passed. Instead, Colin Ferguson is sentenced to more than 300 years in jail.
You, Colin Ferguson, will never again return